Hello there, my name is Gavin Walsh and it is the 29th of March 2025. And a lot of you who have been following the news in the recent days will see that coming out of Saudi Arabia are the critical talks between the US, Russia and Ukraine, and hopefully we will all see an end to that terrible, tragic war in the immediate future, or certainly in the very near future. And we wish the people of Ukraine well in their endeavours. The Ukrainian war is not as simple as people seem to think it is. There are a lot more. It's a lot more than just Russia invaded Ukraine, which they did, and wrong as it was. But I'd like to take you back into another side of the argument, and to go back in time. And I believe the appropriate time to pick. I mean, you can pick time zones forever. Do you go back to Catherine the Great in the 1700s, or do you go to the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 20th century? I think the best thing for simplistic analysis is to go to the end of World War II, because after the end of World War II, a stalemate was quickly set up between East and West, and it was along the lines of what became known as the Iron Curtain, which specifically centred in the splitting of Germany, East and West Germany. It was a bit more complex than that, but that's the basics of it. And in 1949, the United States, Canada, and and 10 other Western European countries set up what is called NATO. And NATO grew and grew and grew. It grew very smallly at first over the next 50 years. And basically, for the next 50 years, the world had peace. Now, the people in the countries east of the Iron Curtain would tell you they didn't have peace. They were kept under an iron fist. So that of course, is true. But it's another side that it's beyond what I'm trying to explain to you here. When Ronald Reagan came to power in January 1981, he went on a huge spending spree, huge military build-up, which included 600 Navy warships and the advent of Star Wars, etc. The Soviet Union just could not keep up with it all, and due to a lot of enormous pressures within the Soviet Union, started to disintegrate from within, and the famous frontal facade of that was the collapse of the Berlin Wall in November 1989. And within 2 years, within 2 years and 1 month, the Soviet Union imploded and was no more, leaving Russia along with 14 other large countries and all the satellite states in Eastern Europe all broken apart. It was an empire that had quickly fallen apart in the space of just over 2 years. 2 months to the day after the Berlin Wall fell, which was February the Berlin Wall fell on November 9, 1989, and 2 months to the day, which was February the 9th, 1990, the United States Secretary of State, a man called Baker, met Gorbachev and they discussed what would become of Germany, and things were very amenable and amicable, and it was agreed that the USSR, which was still in existence, would permit East Germany to reunify with West Germany peacefully. Baker threw in another caveat: could East Germany join NATO, since West Germany was already in NATO? And Gorbachev allowed, on the basis that only existing Eastern German troops would be in the eastern part of the NATO forces in Germany. Now, incredibly bizarrely, none of this was put in writing. It was a sort of a gentleman's agreement. Of course, what the Soviets didn't see was that their own system was going to collapse 2 years later. If they had it done, they would have had a lot of security guarantees. But it was a word of mouth. Now, thankfully, there were records taken, and due to declassified documents after 30 years, there are several of these documents available, authentic documents available online, and I've interspersed some of them here so you will see them, where NATO gave its word that there will be no further expansion after East Germany joined West Germany and thus became part of NATO. Now, you will see anything but that happened. On the contrary, NATO expanded monstrously year in, year out over the next 30 years, and a lot of it was to the dismay of Russia, and it had well been known for years that Russia would draw a line with Ukraine, and indeed the fantastic, brilliant lady Condoleezza Rice, who was the Secretary of State, and in my opinion the cleverest ever Secretary of State to George W. Bush. She told him put an affidavit to him in 2008 that Ukraine would be a red line for Russia if NATO continued its expansion. Nonetheless, the NATO machine continued to expand, and America withdrew from several ballistic missile treaties. And I'm going to document all of those for you over the following few minutes. And there's nothing made up here. It's all as it has already. Not only it's all as it has already occurred or happened. And sadly, there were umpteen warnings given that Russia would eventually call a halt to NATO expansionism, and as we know, that happened in February 2022. And so many lives have been needlessly lost since. And now I'd like to talk to you about what makes the world go round, which is, of course, money, chiefly the United States dollar. This is a US dollar, and on its flat, as you can see, it's wafer thin. In fact, it would take a little over nine of these to equate to a millimeter. So can you imagine how many of these would fit into, say, a mile, 100 mile? Imagine how many $76 trillion would be. Now, a trillion is a million. So if you could think of $1 million in a briefcase, and then you got 1 million briefcases, that's a million, which is a trillion, or also 1,000 billion. But it's a $1 trillion. So can you imagine how many of those it would take to stack to become a trillion? What about 76 trillion? Well, I'm about to show you that if you watch the video through to its end. I hope you enjoy watching the video. It's based on facts. There's nothing picked. There's no chosen pick and choose here. Everything has already occurred. It's already happened. It'll show you another side to war, not just the Russia-Ukrainian war, but any war. You'll see how money plays a huge role in any war. And all I ask of you, if you're going to comment, is please keep your comments respectfully. After all, if the parties involved in 2022 had respected each other, the war would never have happened and people would be alive today. Peace, guys. Cheers.